Okay, so welcome in. At this point, there are people in here. I wasn't sure because I can never see until I press live to see if anyone's actually in here. Now I realised that I was actually meant to go and do gifted memberships this morning. Um, I kind of ran out of time, so I haven't done that. I also realised that I haven't messaged my mods to let them know that I'm going live. Although that said, I kind of feel guilty about messaging them at the last minute to say that I'm going live because it kind of feels like I'm just, dropping it on them like, hey, and I never want my mods to feel that they're obliged to be here. Welcome in, Ariel. Good to see you here. Um, Morning, Bonza. Sorry, I hope you just caught that. I feel bad when I kind of do it last minute. Like, I don't want to make you feel obligated to just, drop everything just because I'm disorganized. But welcome in. Welcome in, Camilla. For some reason, I can see you when you comment on my videos, but when it comes to in my chat, I can't see you. So welcome in, Camilla, even though I can't see you. Um, okay, so I haven't got any kind of, starter videos for this today. I just kind of wanted to jump in, and also because it's kind of crossing from finishing off looking at that last interview with or the Daniel conversation with Charmaine. There's a little bit of that I wanted to go through, and then switching to one of two things which I'll run by you. Oh, Grover's in here as well. I can't see Grover either. I don't know what StreamYard is doing. StreamYard is annoying because so often it doesn't show me comments. So if you are commenting in chat and I haven't greeted you, I apologise. It seems like I can't see you. Anyway, so back to Lily and Jack, back to Daniel. Two ways that I could go after I finish this last bit of audio from Charmaine, but I'll talk about that when we get there. I put out an update last night about Melody and Genesis. So if you're following those cases, hopefully you've seen that. Should be there. Oh, okay. Oh, that it's like that with you for Grover. So when Grover's in here in chat, you don't see Grover, but you can in video comments. Welcome in, Karen. I think supposedly, so long as I schedule it at least half an hour ahead, then people get notifications. But I don't think that's quite right. I think I need to do it like an hour ahead, which means that I need to be getting better at actually getting out of bed of a morning so I can actually schedule it an hour ahead. This time of year with the colder weather, with my sleep patterns being all over the place, I don't like the scheduling at night the night before like I was doing, because it just kind of adds a bit of pressure in terms of me trying to actually get up early enough to make sure I do a live. You've seen there's been a few lives where I've just ended up going later, and a few mornings when I've just not gone live because I've been so exhausted. So maybe I just really need to get back into a better routine. Hopefully this rain will go away one day. Well, I would love to change my lives till lunchtime. But the problem is that while later in the morning is better for me, it's not better for people in like Canada and the United States and everything. So I try to schedule them to accommodate more people, I guess. That said, I really do enjoy doing the evening ones. But I think for Jack and Lily, that's not going to be practical because that's kind of when most people are asleep. So I can see people coming in now. So welcome in. What's up? And Coral, good to see you. Sorry about the short notice with this live. I wanted to put this picture up. Because I didn't have a starter video, I was like, well, I need a picture. And I was going to put a picture of Lily and Jack up. But I think this picture of Jack just really, for me, hits home what this case is about, in my opinion. Welcome in, Summer Breeze. Yeah, Bonza, I'm really not sleeping at the moment. And I saw what time you were commenting last as well. So, I'm not the only one with sleep issues. But yeah, no, I was working on a YouTube short at about 2:00 this morning. I know that's not ideal, and I actually haven't even checked to make sure that it was okay and there were no mistakes. I just kind of put it out. But anyway, it was because I thought it was interesting. We've had Janie talking about if they get out of the gate, and they run, and now she's confirmed that they would do that and they'd get into trouble, but she's never said where they went, which, I mean, it seems pretty obvious that they were going up to the cabins or the forts or whatever they call it. But again, it kind of, goes back to the why are they so avoidant? Why was Janie suddenly like, oh, they never go to the forts? And now she's like, well, if they get out, they run. And Malaya's like, well, they usually play in the forts. Ninchi, it's all these cases. I hit a true crime record yesterday. What's your true crime record? How am I today? I'm a bit brighter. I did take someone's advice and I have started on vitamin D tablets to get me through the winter, which normally is not necessary here in Bendigo because it's still sunny through winter. But I can't remember the last time we had a sunny day here. It's just been wet non-stop for weeks and weeks. And Mouse is awake. So just trying to listen to see. So he's still in bed. He just gave me this disgusted look when I got up and put himself back under the doona. So I suspect... Oh, hello. Did you wake up and we were gone? Yep, I thought so. He was upset because he woke up and I wasn't there. So now he's finished his bark and he's come in and he's curled up under my feet. You've got blue sky today. Oh, I found myself thinking the other day, if it weren't for the fact that my old dog is now too arthritic-y, right now I would love to just pack a bunch of things in the car, hit the road and head north, spend a few weeks up north where it's warm and sunny. But I think Tarka's just at that age where she just can't do random road trips. I have to lift her in the car, and I just don't have the strength to lift a 30-kilo dog into my car. Penny Wart. No, I think someone mentioned that to me, and I think someone sent me a picture of it, and it turned out that I actually have that. Is that the one that looks like a vine? Because I think I have that in my backyard. I didn't know what it looks like, and then someone sent me a picture, and I'm like, I've got that. I have to look into that. Um, Here with humidity 98 degrees, but 104 a few days ago. Yeah, I think I would like anything that's sort of up above 90 degrees right now. I think maybe between 80 and 90 would be good. Looks like a lily pad. Yeah, I've got it growing in my backyard, but it's, I think, kinda, I don't know, I'll have to look into it. Welcome in, Women's Warrior. Good to see you. Good to see people rolling in. Okay, so probably need to start just jumping into this audio because, like I said, I haven't got any clips that I wanted to play beforehand. I just did want to bring up that whole thing of Janie talking about if they get out into the driveway, they get yelled at to get back in, but we never asked, well, if they were getting in the driveway, where were they going? But if that's the case, it does sound like they weren't meant to go up to that fort and be unsupervised, potentially. Even though Malaya said they like to go up there. So maybe that was an issue. Maybe that was a cause of tension in the household. Because I can imagine for Jack, that would be such a great area for looking for bugs and worms. And someone made a really, really good point the other day when they were saying about Janie, when she was saying, well, she came out on the Thursday and Jack's like, look, I found a worm, I found a centipede. And she's like, well, good boy, keep going. Well, or keep looking, I think it was. Did he keep looking? Did he go up to the forts to keep looking? Because that could well be what the situation was. So whoever pointed that out, well done. I wonder if that's where Janie's story comes from, where she's saying they would only go up there with the other kids, because maybe they weren't supposed to go up there on their own. And maybe it was something that they did do, they'd sneak up there when they weren't being watched. Because it's such a sensitivity. We've got Janie insisting they would never go up there without her grandchildren. But then we've got Janie talking about if they get through the gate, you know, and they're running down the driveway. Well, running usually means you're excited to go somewhere, and or you're trying to go somewhere and you don't want to be spotted, so you want to do it quickly. So, you know, they had to run from that gate down to where that broken down car was before they could hit the track to head up to the fort. So maybe they would run down the driveway to basically get there before being spotted. Just, you know, putting these ideas out there. But, you know, when you get Janie saying if they got out into the driveway, they would get yelled at, it makes it sound like they really weren't supposed to go up in the fort. Now I've got Amira barking. Sounds like my neighbours are doing the Saturday morning door slam, which, you know, happens in this neighbourhood occasionally. And Amira is just really unsettled. Yeah, I think I'm more and more interested in this area up around the fort, I have to say. There seems to be more and more things that make me want to pay attention to it. You've never bought the fort story? Which version? Because there's so many versions. You've never bought the running up to check the fort. You've never bought they didn't go there unless they went with the grandchildren, or you never bought did they possibly go up there? Well, that's the thing. It's not near water, so they should be okay up there on their own. Unless, it's just a case of wanting to. It could be another control issue. It could have been a way of asserting control over Malaya and basically making her feel like she was an incompetent mother. Because if Lily and Jack really liked going up there and Daniel was turning around and saying, well, okay, they shouldn't be going up there unsupervised, whereas Malaya was happy with it, then that could be something that could be used to make her feel like she was a bad mother if the children kept doing it and he kept saying, well, they shouldn't do it, and he kept yelling at them. Just a thought. Haven't really, that's only a half a thought anyway. Just kind of going out that way. You think they were misdirecting the search team and RCMP? Possibly. There is also, Daniel frequently refers to jumping the back fence and essentially going into that gully area up the back. But that's during the search. But I think possibly the reason they mention it with RCMP is that regardless of whether or not the children had been playing up there, sounds like you've got to go in that direction to go further up in the woods. Interesting thought. But don't forget too, they probably didn't really worry about where the search team went, because I believe that by the time the RCMP arrived, Lily and Jack were well and truly removed from within the immediate radius of that property. I think they were still in the area, but I just don't think, in terms of deflection, I don't think them talking about them to RCMP on the Friday morning is necessarily misleading, because maybe it's just the logical conclusion. If you're trying to put forward the story that they ran off, then the question probably would be, well, if they ran off, which direction would they go? In which case, then you are relying on recent memory. And that means basically, well, when they run off down the driveway, they go up to the forts. So it could simply be a situation of it didn't matter to them where they searched around the property on the Friday because the children weren't there. And if they were prompted in terms of, well, okay, you think they've run away, you think they've run off, which direction would they normally go? I mean, Malaya's first response with Belinda was the same. Oh, they normally go up to the woods. Yeah. Malaya called Daniel, freaked, grabbed blanket piece, boots, and took off. Yeah, could be. Anyway, let's have a listen to this last bit of audio from Charmaine. It's still morning. You're allowed to have crappy grammar. And when you're trying to, condense a message to put on there, then, it's harder to think straight. Gotcha, Ninchi, from Florida and following. Wish I was there because I'd search. Worked with Texas EquiSearch in the search for Kaylee Anthony. Whoa. Wow, well done. I pushed really hard to try and get EquiSearch in for this case. I believe it got to the point of communication between Belinda and Texas EquiSearch, and that RCMP basically said they didn't need them or didn't want them. So it got to, my understanding is that it was RCMP that turned around and said, we don't want Texas EquiSearch, we don't need them. But wow, yeah. Little Kaylee Anthony, God bless her. That case is so heartbreaking. I still can't understand how Casey Anthony got off. I miss coffee too. I wish I could drink coffee still, but I just can't. The closest I can get is my Pepsi Max, and it just doesn't have the same kind of hit. I mean, if I was still having coffee, normally by this time of day, I'd be onto my second coffee at least. I used to joke that I was like, 90% coffee, but it just wasn't doing good things for me, so I had to quit. And it does make mornings harder. You cleared miles and miles for her. And I bet there was never a thank you. I bet there was never a thank you from Casey or her family. It's such a horrible case. And, just so she could go partying. Because that's certainly how it comes across to me. That little baby was just an inconvenience for her because she wanted to live her life. Well, she managed to fix that problem, didn't she? Yeah. That's the thing, that family never deserved that beautiful little girl. So sad. So sad. Just when I think about cases like hers and that, more recent one with the young girl who put her little girl in her old cubby house, and I can't think of her name. I can picture her face, but I can't think of her name, and I can't even remember what happened to her little girl, but she hid her in like an old container or something in her old cubby house on her parents' property. I think she said she was going to be an advocate for something, but then I think she went to ground again because of public hatred. So Maddie's case was so hard for me as well, and I wasn't even a local. I had to take a break after Stefan pled. What was it that he pled? My brain is not quite there yet. After he pled no contest, I had to take a break because it just wasn't it wasn't justice for Maddie. She deserved better than that. I was so annoyed with the legal teams over that, because it should not have happened. Eveline. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how baby Meadow is doing, but I'd imagine she's doing pretty well. Okay, sorry, yawning. It's all this talk about coffee. I think my brain's like, I need coffee. Just going back to the Kaylee Anthony case, she was reported missing by her mother. Now, it's so long since I've gone through the case, so correct me if I miss any bits. She essentially was claiming that Zanny the nanny had kidnapped her. And that she didn't know where she was. But this is only after, I think, her father reported her missing. Evelyn Boswell. Yes, that's the one. Evil, evil. How anyone could just dispose of their child in their old cubby house. It's wrong. It's evil. Anyway, she's Casey Anthony's just claiming there's this Zanny the nanny that's got her little girl potentially, and it was Cindy Anthony. I couldn't remember whether it was the mum or the dad. I knew it was someone that reported her missing and said they hadn't seen her in a while. And I think, didn't she also report something about the trunk of the car? I might have to actually do this as a live stream. Just go back over the case, because I think there's a lot of people who probably aren't familiar with it. And I think it would be a good refresher for some of us. The whole way through the investigation, Casey Anthony just lied non-stop to investigators. Yes, that's it. She actually told investigators that it smelled like a dead body had been in the trunk of her car. Like, wow. Imagine putting two and two together and realizing that that was your grandchild. Because, to think that a mother would want to go out partying. So basically, okay, so you can correct me as we go along. So wasn't she drugging Casey so she could go out partying? And isn't that what basically prosecution was saying, that basically Kaylee died because Casey had overdone the drugging, and then she'd basically taken her away. The lies throughout the investigation, actually physically taking them to a place that she didn't work, claiming she worked there, and then getting there and going, yeah, I don't actually work here now. Like, honestly, unreal. Anyway, I should probably not get too stuck down into that case, because it is such a... Yes, Universal Studios. That's right. She took them. I'm like, what was this woman thinking? She was so delusional. Taking them to Universal Studios and then going, actually, yeah, I don't work here. No, I think the family tried to claim that she drowned, or the father tried to claim that she drowned. I really do have to go back over it. But I think what I remember hearing was more along the lines that basically that she'd been drugged. I will definitely do the Kaylee Anthony case because I think it is one that a lot of people would be interested in. Even just the psychology of it is mind-blowing. And when you start to get into the nitty-gritty, then, yeah. And there's also that whole side of it that any cases that are from Florida are really easy to cover because access to documents is really, really easy. So yeah, I'm gonna dig in and I'm gonna actually cover that as a case of interest because I'd like to, just making myself a note, I'd like to refresh my memory on it, and I think because it happened quite some time ago, I think there's a lot of people who kind of know the oh wow I could imagine that it would have cut really deep being boots on the ground. I'd love to read that poem at some point if you've got my email address, or you can find it in the description for this live stream and send it to me. That would be lovely. Your motivation has run off with your marbles, but you're good. Yeah, I think I would like to go through it. And I think too, with cases like this, sometimes it's good just to go through them again, just to, remember the children. Because we did have Casey Anthony come back into the spotlight a few years ago. Hang on, let me put it up as a, let me see. There you go. Yeah, because Casey Anthony came into the spotlight a few years ago, and then I think she realised that people just didn't want to have a bar of her because she just kind of vanished again. So it would be good to, go back and look at the case. Welcome in, Dodie. Good to see you. Okay. Oh, Charlotte is in here. Sorry. Hi, Charlotte. I didn't see you come in, and I just saw someone talking to you and didn't realise that you were in here. So welcome in. Okay. A little bit of this Daniel audio.
Just a simple yes or no here. Do you still have visits with baby M?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
They never stopped.
If Malaya Brooks Murray is such a good mom, why is her baby still in foster care a year later? I think that's pretty self-evident. There's 2 children missing.
But is that self-evident? Because, I mean, yes, my first thought would be when you have 2 children go missing from 3, that you are going to look closely. But I think in legal terms, they'd have to have more than just 2 children being missing to be able to take custody of the 3rd child. I mean, it is an anomaly, certainly, for 2 children to go missing. It's highly unlikely for 2 children to have gone missing just innocently. But I think in terms of when you look at the legal side of it, when you look at the expectations on, what is acceptable when it comes to CPS taking children, they'd have to have a better case than just there are 2 children missing. Good to see you in here, Brookie Cookie. Yeah, that's what I think too. The property was not in a good state. According to Wade, there were rats in the walls. I don't know if he was over-exaggerating. I have heard that he can be prone to over-exaggerate at times, but at the same time, when you look at the condition of the property, it could be. Sounds like there were holes in the floor. That was reported by one of the media stations, one of the it might have even been Lindsay that reported it. Somebody reported it, and it was the same reporter who had actually posted photos from inside the RV. So they must have actually been doing an interview inside, not inside the RV, inside the trailer. So they must have been doing an interview inside the trailer and seen that there were holes in the floor. I've never actually asked Belinda about the condition of the floor and stuff. But certainly I think they probably would have had to have looked at the property. The baby definitely looked pale. She had very dark circles under her eyes from the photos that we've seen. She did look kind of sickly, so I think it would have to have been a number of things. Yeah, I don't think they will get baby M back until the case is closed. Given that there is now, well, we know that there is a file on Lily and Jack, then until there's any sort of resolution on the case, then baby M's not going anywhere. Yeah, it does look like the trailer was in pretty bad shape. I mean, I'm looking at this photo here of Lily and Jack doing like Christmas decoration things, and behind them, the table's just covered in junk. I don't know if that's rubbish or what. But it doesn't look like Malaya was overly good at keeping up with housework and stuff. Well, true. No one would know if baby M was back with her. Her side won't say anything if she is, and Daniel won't find out. He can't go there. Oh, yeah, it could be recycling behind them. That's a good point. Yeah, you're so right, Bonza, because obviously we've heard that the family that were looking after the baby lived on the reserve. So in terms of... Amira! Come on! Sorry. Something to bark at outside. In terms of Daniel's visits, they were always, they are always happening supervised at CPS. So we wouldn't know, but the last I heard, but it wasn't from the most reliable source because it was a bit of a... It was from the source that likes to do the PR thing for Malaya. The last I heard was that she was being allowed to have the baby unsupervised for periods of time. But I would be very, very surprised if she was given custody back of the baby while this case is still ongoing, in my opinion. Okay, so let's hear what Daniel has to say. So why is it that her baby is still in foster care a year later? And now Daniel's response.
Not the reason.
It's not. Okay, what is it?
I don't want to make this live turn the wrong way into an attack on Malaya. We'll just say that. I don't want to do that.
BS, Daniel. The moment he says that he doesn't want to turn this into an attack on Malaya, basically what he's saying is, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come at it sideways so that you guys can at least draw the conclusion from what I'm saying, so that I can't be accused of making an attack on Malaya, but I really am going to make an attack on Malaya. Well, that's also a possibility. I mean, if you think about the situation from what we heard with Derwood and Daniel, and the story of Malaya doing a runner to the reserve, when you look at it that way, my thoughts are that the reason that she would take off to the reserve, and specifically to her father's house, which is what seems to be the suggestion, then it does seem to suggest that she was feeling unsafe, and that she went there because she was feeling unsafe. So what if there was a report made and they said, well, for the safety of the baby, we're going to put her with a family, in terms of, because they felt that there was a risk to Malaya and the baby, and in order to protect the baby not from Malaya but from an other risk, they did take her and place her in care. Because the more we learn about this situation, the more we start to see the level of coercive control, the veiled threats have gone to outright threats now. Like, if Malaya speaks, I'm going to weaponize it. Yes. Sorry, Daniel made it really clear. At one point in time, he went from basically saying that, he still loved Malaya and he wanted to walk by waterfalls or whatever it was. That switched to he wanted the baby. Cindy had custody. Malaya could only see the baby supervised. Cindy could not guarantee that, so custody was taken from Cindy, not Malaya. Malaya lost custody on May 2nd. Is this verified, Karen? I don't want to ask you too much, but I have got the distinct impression that you know the family. But it's not something that I can ask you to verify. But certainly that I've heard that mentioned very early on in the case. I think that was probably one of the first things that was mentioned in terms of the custody situation. I mean, I guess we can speculate a lot, But in terms of factual, what we really know, it's hard to say. Yeah. That's a good point too. He sees the baby as his possession. As a possession, he wants her. He doesn't care about the baby. He just doesn't want Malaya having her. I think you're right, because I pointed out anytime he was talking about the baby, he referred to her as his, and then he would have to correct himself and refer to her as our baby. So in his mind, baby M is his. You think that's why she lost it and had to go to the ambulance? Possibly not, because I think when you consider the timing of it, I believe Malaya had a panic attack in the briefing, because that briefing was the 3rd of May. And I have no doubt that on the 3rd of May, the RCMP knew the direction this case was headed. So in terms of the briefing, they would have very carefully thought about what they were going to tell Malaya and Daniel in order to see what sort of reaction they could get out of them, to see if they got the appropriate reaction from them. And I think whatever it was they said triggered a panic attack in Malaya, and I think it escalated from there. It definitely sounds like a panic attack to me. Maybe a panic attack and risk and self-assessed by emergency personnel. Yes, so true. Something that I was thinking about the other day with this case, I want to have another look at Malaya's side of things soon. But something that just came to mind the other day is, in a situation like this, when law enforcement come in and I thought that was what you were talking about, Ariel. I won't put that second part up, but yeah, risk to self, essentially. So I don't put it up and then I do. When it comes to cases like this, I think it needs to become standard protocol with law enforcement that if it reaches a point where they suddenly realise that this is not 2 kids just wandered off, there's something else going on here. Now, they were taking Janie, Malaya, Daniel into their own RCMP vehicles to interview them about the case. And when you look at all the cases we've looked at in the past, probably not necessarily some of the more recent ones, but I think it should become protocol. If there is a child missing and if it seems suspicious, that when the parents or, partners are separated, it should just be one of the first questions that should be asked of the female in a situation like this is, do you feel safe? Because, and I remember Grizzly True Crime talking about this years and years ago when she was covering Gabby and Gabby Petito case. If you ask someone who's in a coercive relationship, who's in a potentially DV relationship, if you're in a position to ask them, do they feel safe? There's a good chance you're going to get a reaction. Yes, I agree. I think taking each one of them right away, separately, oh, yeah. Now that starts to make sense, doesn't it? When we have Daniel's family saying that she said she never felt safer. Well, of course she's going to say that if she's not safe right there surrounded by Daniel's family. It's survival. There are so many comments that Daniel is reporting in terms of Malaya said this and this proves that everything was fine, that to me are red flags, and that was one of them. Her saying she'd only been saying 5 minutes beforehand that she never felt safer. Now that is also bingo. Yeah, exactly, Charlotte. If she was in that ambulance having a panic attack, which is what it sounds like to me, and I don't know what the training is, but you get some ambulance crew who are so intuitive, even if they're not necessarily trained to see things in this situation. Could have even been Cindy if someone had have asked her, do you feel safe? But I think it needs to become protocol. Wherever it is, psychiatric training. I think, hasn't someone said that Cindy has a little bit of that sort of in her background? But it does make you think, did someone ask her, do you feel safe? And that was the turnaround in terms of getting her off the property. But I certainly think that it should become standard protocol. As soon as there is suspicion in a missing children's case, that there should be separation, complete separation, and just a simple question, usually to the mother, not always, sometimes you can get it the other way, but a simple question of, do you feel safe? Yeah, true. Janie did say that Malaya had had a panic attack before. Anyway, I'm going to run this back a little bit and we'll hear the full version of what Daniel had to say here.
An attack on Malaya. We'll just say that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Let's just say the CPS knows the truth on nothing to do with the disappearance, but how Lily and Jack were treated by Malaya. I will leave it at that.
Fair enough.
Well, we won't touch on anything more than that.
So
Muted mic again. Daniel never liked Cindy, but the way he spoke about Cindy around the time that Malaya left. He really didn't like her. I do think that Cindy, you know, the woman has been working for 20 years in, you know, she's not a nurse, but she's been working in that field, in the care industry. So she would have seen the signs. So I have felt from day one that Cindy did exert some pressure on Malaya in terms of, you need to come with me and you need to bring the baby with me. Yeah. I believe Malaya knew full well what happened. She was not in a good state mentally, I don't believe. Belinda said it was like she was in shock, which is not the appropriate response for if your children are just missing. I think it's a complicated situation. It's when you bring in coercive control and DV, which I believe definitely existed in that relationship, it does create a really complicated situation. Now, there are some choices that Malaya made that I believe were wrong choices. And I do think that there needs to be some accountability. But the thing is, we're just scratching the surface in terms of what was going on in that relationship. We're just getting little glimpses from Daniel with things that he says. And the glimpses we're getting, and we had those messages from the girlfriend, and the glimpses we're getting do certainly paint a picture where, and I've said this a few weeks ago, and I hate saying this, but had it not been Lily and Jack, it could have been Malaya, or it could have been all three. Yes, I do think that possibly Malaya having children is to compensate for psychological issues. But again, she doesn't talk much, so it's harder to know. Anyway, I'll come back to that in another live stream or in a video because, like I said, I do want to go back over Malaya's interview. I want to go back over her statement, especially with fresh eyes now that we're hearing more of these things from Daniel that are huge red flags. That's the thing. I mean, I've said this from early on that I felt it was complicated because I could see the coercive control. But Daniel's shown us even more that makes it even more frightening, in my opinion. And yes, Charlotte, it is quite possible in a situation like that, if what happened to Lily and Jack, if that was rage-induced, then it is quite possible that when the search died down, when there weren't eyes on Daniel and Malaya, that she could have been next. That 8:38 phone call, attempted phone call, and then her calling the cops while Daniel was out, the response from both Daniel and Janie, certainly makes me think that things could have turned out differently, maybe. If she'd have managed to get through to Cindy at 8:38, could we have had a different scenario? Yeah, Karen, I do think Malaya probably is filled with shame. And I think she's extremely concerned with what her family and friends are going to think about her if she really tells the truth. We'll just leave it at that. But certainly here, what Daniel's trying to do in terms of saying CPS knows the truth, but it's got nothing to do with the disappearance. It's about how Lily and Jack were treated by Malaya. He was trying to establish this months ago, way back early on, when he made that one message. I can't remember who it was to. I've just got a bunch of messages saved in my Google Drive, but there's this one message that he sent to someone saying that Malaya was basically becoming more and more violent in the lead up to the disappearance of the children. To me, that sounds like classic deflection, classic Darbo. Let's flip the script here. I also don't think, if you look at it in that way, I think publicly, yeah, I think we're definitely looking at a Darbo situation. I'm just reading people's comments because there's some really good comments here. Don't forget, he had, 3 years to train her, let's say. Because what happens in a situation where you have coercive control, where you have DV, is that you get the isolation. Now, I did a really long video on this probably about 7 or 8 months ago, but you get the isolation, which he did. He isolated her from her friends, most of her family, and then you start to undermine their confidence, their belief in themselves. And we've heard the amount of times that him and Janie were talking about Malaya being a bad mother. We've heard Daniel in the documents talking about how he was the only one that could control the kids. Malaya couldn't control the kids. And we know that he actually managed to get that into her head, because there are comments from Malaya as well in the documents along the lines of he had a voice that they would listen to. Yeah, we don't know what she's told the RCMP about the relationship, that's for sure. Yeah, to move in with a guy after 2 weeks, that's concerning, I have to say. The one issue that I have with Malaya, and I'm going to do this in a separate video, is that she shouldn't have spoken out publicly, full stop. If she was just on the periphery of this, and the only role in this is her being there, her not removing the children, my issue is her coming out and lying in public. Oh yeah, the love bombing. 2 weeks, he would have started love bombing straight away. He would have made her think straight away that he was the love of her life. Yes, Rochelle, it could have been a case of that sort of extortion-y thing, because I can imagine that happening as well. But see, the thing with coercive relationships, they always start with serious love bombing. This, we are soulmates. You know, my life was never complete until I met you. You are the most beautiful person in the world. Just really, really flattering them, love bombing them. Well, yes and no, because the thing is, I think, I mean, maybe she felt pressured to do that interview that she did. But my big issue is that statement that she made in October, there are lies in that. So that's where I've got issues. Yeah, it would be humiliating to basically have turned your back on friends and family, to basically gush about him, and then discover what he's truly like. She would feel that it is a reflection on her. You know, a lot of the things we've said in terms of, you know, she should have got them out beforehand and stuff like that, you can bet these are things that she's thought through herself. But again, it is so complicated. Yeah. That's usually the situation. Either they warned her against him, or when she was gushing about them, they didn't gush back, which would have been enough of a sign for her that they didn't approve. So for her to have this situation come about, I mean, the fact that she was willing to say to her grandmother that he held her down and took her phone, that's going to be minimising, for starters. But that says that there had to have been way more going on than that. Because I have never, ever heard of a coercive situation, a DV situation, where anything they've disclosed has been even remotely close to what they've been going through. Because it is a humiliating situation to be in. Yeah. Whoops. Welcome in, Seashell. When you look at the people that have come out in this case, I could imagine Hayley being vocal at the beginning. I could imagine Patty being vocal at the beginning. It's such a dicey situation for anyone to be in, because the people around them cannot say anything either way. Because the thing is, if you do say something about a relationship that's looking unsafe, you're going to be cut out. Bingo. That's usually what happens. If family and friends respond when someone is with the wrong person, quite often what happens is you push them. If you react in any way, you push them closer to the perpetrator. You isolate them more, because the moment you speak, then that perpetrator is going to be working very hard on convincing them that you're a bad person and they need to stay away from you. So it is such a difficult situation to be in. And this goes back to, people have criticised Belinda for accepting Malaya not allowing her to see her grandchildren. But what Women's Warrior has said here is precisely what the situation was. And Belinda was clearly intuitive enough to understand that. Belinda would have understood that any attempt to push from her to see her grandchildren was going to push things the other way and make it even less likely for her to be able to see her grandchildren. So she did decide to wait it out. You know, I've said this before, and I think a lot of people just don't understand that. Women's Warrior, I've said a similar thing to Belinda as well. You know, you will never win in a situation like that. Even if she were to try taking Malaya to court for access to the grandchildren, you can still guarantee that Daniel would have been involved in that. Belinda really had no choice in the matter. Belinda is so intuitive, and she understood. I think the people who accuse Belinda of not caring about her grandchildren, the people who pull this out as a way of trying to throw shade on Belinda, don't understand how these things work. But it certainly seems Belinda understood. She knew. She was just... yeah. I mean, she saw the way the distancing began. Malaya made it really clear to her that Daniel was feeling threatened about Malaya taking the children to see Belinda. I mean, everything we've learnt over the last 14 months is about how intuitive Belinda is. And she made the right choice because it meant that there was no damage to her relationship with Malaya. It meant that down the track, if the situation changed, then Malaya would feel comfortable reaching out to Belinda. And from memory, I do believe that Malaya reached out to Belinda around the time of Lily's birthday and suggested that she may be giving Belinda access to the children in the future. I think this is when Malaya was considering leaving. And it was looking like there was a possibility that Belinda was going to get access to her grandchildren again. Had she pushed the situation in those early days, she would have ruined her relationship with Malaya, and the possibility of that happening down the future would have been severely diminished. Yeah. It's a shame that Paddy didn't check where Malaya was going with the children, but at the same time, I would imagine that both Malaya and Daniel were very careful about making sure that the family didn't really see the full picture. I'm just having a look through. I think in terms of stresses, sadly, I think that Malaya having a car combined with their financial issues, I think that was the tipping point. Because he would have felt so threatened by Malaya actually having her own vehicle. Yeah. Daniel would never have allowed Malaya to take the kids to Belinda. Exactly. Malaya saying to Belinda in March that, she was thinking about down the track Belinda getting access. That to me suggests very strongly that she was planning on leaving. That is always a possibility. She had just got the plates for that vehicle. We don't know the situation, but sorry, another yawn. We know that the most dangerous time in any sort of relationship is when a person is about to leave. And it is possible that something was said and he lost the plot. If that was fueled by any illegal substances, then yes, I could see that as being a distinct possibility. It's really frightening. Again, I don't want to give Malaya a free pass. but we've also got to understand the sort of things that would have been going on in the background. Definitely, if he thought that she was going to take the baby with her, that would have been something to cause him to snap. And I think probably one of the main reasons, probably the main things that kept her there was almost certainly a threat from him of, if you leave, I'm taking the baby and you're never going to get her back. Yeah, true. If she was high on THC, she might have been incapable of making the right decisions. There's so many factors to consider here. It will be interesting to see how this all pans out. Good point. He does push the narrative that he got bogged a few days earlier, not like, overnight or anything like that. But that is him admitting that he did have his vehicle just prior to them going missing. The vehicle, which then apparently was at Earl's property, couldn't be driven, didn't run, or something like that. Like, for real. Okay, Daniel now starts talking about the clothing. So I want to cover some of that as well, because I'd like to try and finish with this Charmaine stuff.
Can you ask him why he said before that he found the Barbie shirt, but now they have it as that's what she went missing with? And I do remember you saying at one time that you found that shirt. Can you clarify on that any?
Yeah, there's a Barbie sweater and a Barbie t-shirt. So I found the Barbie t-shirt in the stuff here. That's what I'm referring to. Not the actual shirt, not the sweater or the hoodie. It's the t-shirt that I found that Lily was supposedly wearing with the time of the disappearance. I found the Barbie t-shirt here.
Back when the kids went missing.
Okay, sorry, I should have paused there. I was just listening to the tone of his voice, and it gave me Rain Man flashbacks, just the way he was saying it. Yeah, I agree. I think had things not escalated, that Malaya probably would have seen Belinda as possibly a safer person to confide in than immediate family. But clearly things escalated and it just went pear-shaped from there. Yeah, I think in retrospect, Belinda sharing messages from Malaya with Sunny wasn't a good choice. But Belinda was desperate for answers. She was so desperate for answers back then. And you can't blame her, that's her grandchildren. So this whole word salad from Daniel about the Barbie t-shirt and the Barbie sweater, honestly, my opinion is that he's just basically said the wrong thing. He's not thought through what he's saying in terms of Barbie sweater or Barbie t-shirt. It's like when he stuffed up on the DT show and said which blanket. So then he had to invent an extra blanket. I think what he's doing here is that he's misspoke Yes, I agree. And I'll come back to that in a sec. He's misspoke at some point in time in terms of Barbie t-shirt, Barbie sweater. He's got himself all confused, and now he's just basically trying to backtrack. But again, this is all about throwing shade on Malaya, because I'm guessing that she's the one that gave the description of what they are wearing. So now he wants to make her look bad. This is still him trying to push the narrative that Malaya changed the children's clothes before sending them off with somebody, with Lily and her backpack, etc. Yeah, Sunny really should not have shared those messages. And she got upset with DT for sharing things that she had shared with him privately. The Haley audio. But when you are communicating with someone like that behind the scenes, you just shouldn't be sharing stuff unless you have permission. The few times when I've come out and shared information that I've got from Belinda that may have been stuff that's not been shared before, I've always checked and said, is it okay if I mention this? There's a few times when I've shared like actual messages showing the messages, and I always check, unless it's something where it seems pretty clear that it's not something that would be an issue. But if it's something that, you know, is potentially private, then I will always check. But Sunny came out with all these messages from Daniel, the messages that Belinda had from Malaya. And I think, as much as I respect Sunny, I think she set the tone for this case. She set the tone for all the fake messages, all the fake stories, because basically it became a thing of, look, I've got messages from Daniel, they're real, and everyone wanted to be getting attention the same way. Bingo. There's been times when I've said things on my channel where I've posed them as speculation or as what ifs because of information I've been given in the background, and where it's information that I can't necessarily share for the sake of protecting individuals or for the sake of the case. I don't come out and say, hey, I know something you don't know. But if I find something out, I will sometimes bring it forward as speculation. Because you still have to be sensitive. I mean, I had communication with the RCMP over things in the last week that I was going to do a video about. And just from reading between the lines with the final communication, in the end I went, nah, I'm actually just going to share these emails with Belinda and Chelsea and leave it at that. even though obviously Alison knew that I was contacting her for the purpose of information for videos. When I read it through, after I'd asked for clarification, I thought, no, because people will probably see through what is being said here. She had specifically said in the second email, we don't want to give that particular information out, but, and then gave a kind of one of those statements, one of those deflection statements, and I just went, yeah, no, I'm not going down that track. So there are ways. You don't have to come out and just blab it to the world. We're not helping people, and we're not helping investigations if we come out and share something we've been told, if it's something that probably could jeopardize the investigation or could cause harm to a person. Yeah, exactly. Not everything has to be public. Yeah, I agree, Grover, with what you were saying too. I think if you've got confidential information and you share it with another content creator, there's no way that you could be believing that that content creator is not going to necessarily share it. There's got to be some level of motivation there in terms of, I want to get this leaked, but I don't want to leak it because I don't want to compromise this relationship. I'll share it with this other person who might just share it with someone else, or who might leak it themselves. Maybe I'm off base, but yeah, I probably shouldn't keep going down this road, because I don't want to get into that kind of murky water. So let's just listen to a little bit more of this audio instead, I think.
A year ago, it was said that Jack had his jacket, and then I believe later you said you found that jacket. Is that correct? Or
No. At the start, it was believed that Jack left without a jacket on. After I started to gather up the kids' stuff and everything in the house, I put it all in Jack and Lily's room, right? All their clothes, all their belongings, and kept them in there. And I stored them until Malaya wanted the kids' clothes and belongings. But I noticed Jack's, his navy blue, like the spring, like a windbreaker, so it's a really thin winter coat. I noticed that his was missing. And the only way that would be missing is if it left on him that morning.
Sorry, having trouble finding the unmute button. The other thing, I'm just going to say this before I go back to what Daniel said. What we've realised now is that people weaponise things that have been said. If I were to share private information that was given to me publicly, people could weaponise that, because that is what's been happening in this case. Well, no, that is a good point. That is a really good point. Yeah. One creator may need someone they trust to discuss things with, as they don't have anyone else who understands or is trustworthy to disclose it to. True. I mean, I think the only time I've shared things behind the scenes with content creators was needing help with something for this case, without going into too much with that. But certainly if you are a content creator who is kind of working almost in isolation, and you have a content creator that you trust, then yeah, I could see that. There's a content creator that I have worked with for over 3 years now, and we have a close relationship. We have a very trusting relationship, and I will share a lot of stuff with her in the background when there is things that I want to kind of debrief over. But at the same time, that's me knowing 100% that she's not someone who's going to come out and put it out on her own channel. And she's not someone who's actually covering this case. So I would be hesitant to share anything with anyone that's covering this case. I think it's about understanding that if you need to disclose to someone, choosing the right person to disclose to, maybe. Yeah, I'll probably leave it at that. Okay, this jacket. Malaya has the jacket. This jacket is not missing. Full stop, end of story. But what he's doing here, so he's, again, trying to hint at the story. Yeah, I agree with you, Bonzo. I won't put that up there, though. He's trying to hint again at this idea of Cindy coming and taking the kids. So when he was talking to the turkey guy, he was trying to push this idea of someone actually coming into the house because the coats were too high. Jack couldn't have reached his spring coat. So he's trying to push the idea of someone coming into the house, collecting the kids, collecting Jack's coat, taking them out and shushing them, which him and Janie now claim they've never said. So it's all about, once again, putting this back on Cindy. Now, logically, had this even happened, for starters, Janie's dog would have gone berserk. Secondly, Lily would have been so excited that the whole house would have been woken up. But thirdly, why would, like, let's say hypothetically this happened, why would Cindy take Jack's coat and not Lily's? Even if you were in a rush and you didn't have time to put both their coats on, you would grab both coats. Now, what he's saying here, he gives this description. Yeah, magically found what they said they went missing in. Yep, of course he did. After saying that he needed CCTV footage to be able to figure out what they went missing in. So now he's like, he noticed it was missing. And the only way that would be missing is if it left on him that morning. Okay, so if I go to the shops later today and I put a jacket on to go to the shops, am I going to tell you that when I went to the shops, my jacket left on me as well? Like, it's not even real English. It's like the blue boots for Jack, pink boots for Lily. It's not a suggestion of, well, the only way it could be missing is if he put it on when he left. The only way it could be missing is if someone put it on him or if someone took it with him. But he doesn't say it that way. It left on him that morning. Again, really huge red flag for me. But now I'm going to hypothesize here in terms of him claiming that Lily's jacket was there, Jack's wasn't. And this idea of the only way it could be missing is if he was wearing it. What if Jack was wearing it in the vehicle at some point in time? What if the day before, when they went into town, Jack was wearing the jacket? And it sounds like Jack's really good at pulling his jacket off. Sounds like Jack did not like wearing jackets and boots. So, is it possible the jacket was pulled off, put on the floor of the vehicle, and forgotten about, and that is why Malaya had that jacket? Because it's not like she would have gone back to the house and collected the jacket and taken it with her. Always sounds like listing confiscated items. Yeah. Good point. That could be the point. That the RCMP took it and he's going to throw shade on Malaya instead. But in this instance, we have confirmation that Malaya has that jacket. That jacket is accounted for. Yeah, exactly. If you're heading into the house to take two kids who get excited, you're not going to mess around. You're not going to waste time. But, Daniel doesn't think any of this through, clearly. But it seems to me that the most logical explanation, given that Malaya has that jacket, is that it was left on the floor of her vehicle. I mean, I don't have kids myself, but I know when my sister's kids were little, when my cousin's kids were little, rule number one, when you get back to the house and when the kids get out of the car, is check the floor behind the passenger seat and the driver's seat to see what's been left behind. It's logical. It's not the only explanation for the jacket not being in the house. The most logical explanation is that it was taken off by Jack, who doesn't like wearing jackets and boots, dumped on the floor in the vehicle, and forgotten about. Oh, exactly. Lily Well, see, he's trying to make it sound like Cindy came in and got the children. Well, given how excited Lily gets, given Lily's squeals, had Cindy rocked up, Lily would have been squealing with excitement. Making a mental note of what should be missing along with the kids. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe he... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's worried that Malaya's trying to frame him because he can't account for this jacket, so now he's got to put it back on Cindy. Oh, yeah. Most people with young kids, if you want a toy, if you want something sticky, if you want some spare clothes, go look in the back of the car. Look squeezed between the seats. Because kids will discard clothes quite readily and then forget they exist. So we're talking exactly, can't find something, check the car. Especially when kids are involved. Lost the favourite toy? Check the car. I'd love to know what the story is with those two sweaters. Talks about them being missing and then at one point in time claims that they were found again. But at one point he's accusing... He makes this story of when he was out, someone must have gone into the RV, into the trailer, and stolen things, including his sweaters. I don't think they... I think they were wearing things. Lily was apparently wearing... One of the sweaters that she took, he was wearing when she left. Huh. Oh, socks and shoes too. Yeah, oh my gosh. Kids and their socks and shoes dumped everywhere. No, the children have been described as wearing clothes. Lily was apparently wearing a pink Barbie top and pink something bottoms, and Jack was wearing a pull-up, and then they added in little black pants at some point in time. I don't think they ever mentioned what top he was wearing. But they definitely were wearing clothes when they went missing. It's just that Daniel's trying to change the narrative. Yeah, that's the point. They could have taken them for DNA purposes. That's for sure. Okay, so now we get another new story from Daniel. This is another one where clearly he's got to correct the narrative. So she had said to him, she said, Jack had his jacket, and I believe later you said you found that jacket. Now, Daniel would no doubt remember Belinda coming out months and months ago and saying the jacket has been accounted for, because it was one of the things that Belinda had publicly questioned. Where's this blue jacket? And then I think Cheryl must have contacted her. Now, I'm just guessing here because I'm only going with we know that Belinda has confirmed for it that the jacket was accounted for, but I'm presuming it was Cheryl that contacted her and said, Malaya has the jacket. But because Melissa has said this, that, you said later the jacket was found, Daniel has to basically get rid of that story. He has to debunk that story because that goes against his story. So he's going to invent another jacket, just like he invented another blanket. I think they will be charged, or at least some, possibly all of them will be charged. I think we will get there.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
So, but Mom did say early on they found Jack's other other coat up in the woods. And they did. It was left up there for like a week or something in the woods, and we brought it back down to the house. But I think that's where that misconception may have came from.
BS, he just made that up on the spot because basically he knows that they came out and said the coat was covered, the coat was found. And you'll note that he says, oh, well, they did found Jack's other spring coat. And then clearly he realised that sounded really dumb, saying it was his other spring coat. So then he's like, other coat up in the woods? It was left up there for like a week or something. Does this guy not remember all the searches that were on his property? Does this guy not remember that they were doing a grid search in those first few days? Does this guy not remember that he himself took CBC up to those little forts before the 7th of May, so less than a week after the children went missing? So it would have been the 6th or the 7th of May because they published it on the 7th. He took them up to the forts. If Jack's spring coat had been left anywhere in the woods, it would have been left in the forts, which were searched over and over and over and over. So this is just a complete BS story, basically trying to debunk the fact that Belinda has come out and said the jacket's been found. Yeah, they did take the toothbrushes, so I would imagine that they have done DNA testing. But you can guarantee if there were any items of clothing discarded up in the woods, they would have found them on day 1. So, complete utter BS story from Daniel. Yet again. I don't think anybody would have bought that one. Yeah, they only took the kids' toothbrushes that I know of. And then we have, we don't know in terms of DNA from Malaya, possibly, most likely did. Because when it comes to mitochondrial DNA, which is the DNA from the mother, that is the most resilient form of DNA. So let's say down the track they find traces of evidence and they can get DNA samples off them, but they can't get a full DNA profile, then it's possible that they might get mitochondrial DNA, which is what would link straight to Malaya, not to Cody, because, like I said, that lasts the longest, it preserves the best. So they would almost certainly have had to have gotten DNA from Malaya after the children went missing. Oh, yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. He comes up with a story it gets debunked, so he comes up with a new one. I mean, even down to the point of he gave this really long-winded description on the Turkey show of finding the blanket in the bag, in the garbage bag, and he could tell there was a hand-sized hole in that garbage bag, and he could tell that someone had reached a hand in and ripped the piece of blanket from the other piece of blanket in that garbage bag. And people basically debunked the heck out of that, essentially. And then all of a sudden, and I haven't found where it came from, but all of a sudden we're being told, actually, you know what? That piece of blanket was actually over the railing. Complete flip. Even down to the point where people keep telling me that Justin showed a photo, an image on his channel of this piece of blanket over the railing, which has to be AI generated. Welcome in. Good to see you in here. A few extras coming in now. The image of the blanket over the railing could only be AI generated. First of all, I have a folder in my Google Drive with over 100 images from around the property, from drone footage, from news footage. Every single source of footage of that property I've got screenshots from. And I have screenshots of every inch of that property. And the thing is, when you're looking at around the back, because they're saying it was on the rail at the back, it looks like she is wearing a pull-up at the very least in that picture, that's for sure. Any footage around the back of that property was from probably around the 16th, 15th, 16th. Now, they must have gone in and interviewed Malaya on the 3rd, but the media weren't on the property at all on the 2nd. Well, the strip of blanket was found in the afternoon of the 2nd, meaning that if there's any images showing a piece of pink blanket over a rail on the property, they're not real. So it's the classic Daniel strategy of this story got debunked, let's come up with a new one and hope that people forget, hope that people buy the new one. Maybe he could tell if the garbage bag was one of those tough, extra strong garbage bags. Yeah, I don't know, just red flags with the whole story, in my opinion. But okay, so there's only a little bit of this audio to go, so I do want to try and get through the rest of this. So now, just in case people didn't get that he's trying to fix the misconception, he makes it clear. So I'll just run it back a few seconds.
There for like a week or something in the woods, and we brought it back down to the house. But I think that's where that misconception may have came from. So hopefully I cleared that up. But as it goes for the description of the kids, it was never updated that Jack had the navy blue spring coat on. And that's 100% fact that he left in that, because it's not at the house. I searched the house completely. Lily's was still here, her pink spring coat, but Jack's is missing. So I believe that the description should be updated to you know, fit that that outfit that he had on.
Really, really pushing the narrative here. He's just going over the top to persuade people. First of all, that's where the misconception may have come from. So straight up, he's basically saying that where Belinda has come out and said the jacket's been found, Malaya's got it. He's hoping people will forget that's where the information comes from. So he comes out with this story of, well, there was one that was found up in the woods about a week later. That's probably where this misconception comes from of the jacket having been accounted from. Because, you know, it suits him better to have the story out that the jacket's missing. And then you get guaranteed this is, you know, him pushing that's 100% fact. Well, either it's a fact or it's not a fact. When you have to really push hard with that's 100% fact. And you have to just continue with the explanation. He's trying to sell this really hard. And again, he pushes it, well, it's because it's not at the house. Yeah, no, it's not at the house because Malaya has it. But also, can we just acknowledge that at the time when he was doing this conversation with Charmaine, none of the children's clothes were at the house anymore because he'd already bagged them up and sent them off with RCMP. Yes, I love that. That is the perfect analogy. A dog trying to cover his scat and he just keeps kicking up the dirt and grass, which is really not helping at all. Spot on. Yeah, I think Malaya liked having nice clothes, having cute clothes for the kids. And I think Lily clearly loved her clothes because there's so many photos where she's just being a real cute little poser. It's like, I think she knew that she had some really cute little outfits and she had to pose in them. I don't know how things were for them in that last 9 months or so after Cody lost his job and the money wasn't coming in. But when we look at all the images, I don't think that they were lacking for nice clothes. All right, about the day when they went missing. It brings to mind that episode of Friends when Joey and Chandler had some fight over, I think Chandler, I can't even remember how it started, but I just remember this one scene with Joey walking into Monica and Phoebe's apartment wearing all Chandler's clothes. It just makes me think of that they've just basically put on like multiple layers of clothes. Because who knows? Like, we would have to go back to the actual RCMP page and find the description of what they were wearing. Now, to be really clear on what they were wearing. Sadly, it seems to be the case. I really don't think he was very involved with Lily and Jack. I mentioned a few weeks ago when he's talking about the evening routines. I don't think he was around much for their evening routines. I suspect he was probably hanging out with friends after work and getting home late, or just getting home and going and doing his thing. I'm not convinced that piece of blanket found in the tree didn't get left in the laundry at Paddy's place. No, I can't see that as, I can't see how that would work though, because it's just a strip of blanket. It would have had to have been cut from the main piece of blanket. It just makes no sense to me for it to have been taken and washed or anything like that. Yeah, exactly, Sky Painter. When it comes to rugs, there's only one priority. And we've seen that pretty clearly. That rumour's a bit iffy too, because you've got this story that Daniel and Janie put out that, oh, none of Malaya's clothes were there. And yet there's another time when Daniel slips up and he basically says, well, it was just like when she left Cody. She just left all her stuff. So he actually confirmed himself that no, Malaya didn't leave all her clothes at Paddy's place. They were actually at the property. Yeah, that's also a possibility. The fact that he just didn't pay attention to them enough to know what they were wearing. Definitely a possibility. Because it certainly seems like he didn't really know their routine. Yes, also, good point. Logan came out and said Malaya left all her stuff. So if we look back to the original stories were that Malaya left all her stuff. I think it's going to be something that is going to be kind of crucial when this goes to trial. Hopefully this will go to trial. We've had stories from both sides that don't add up. I mean, let's be honest. And on that note, sounds like I've got company. So that's a really good spot for me to, because the dog's going to go berserk. So that's a really good spot for me to probably wrap this up. There was one little bit more of audio. Sorry, it's gotten a bit loud here. There was one more bit of audio that I was going to play. But on retrospect, given that it's him having a dig at another channel, it's probably better if I don't play that bit of audio anyway. So it's only a very short bit. You can hear it on Charmaine's channel. If you want to go and listen to, and let me just put the banner up briefly. Where is it? Okay, so now that I've gotten through all this audio from Daniel, if you wanted to go to Charmaine's channel and listen to this entire live stream from start to finish without my interruptions, without the commentary, just listening to the conversation between Charmaine and Daniel, then that is her channel there, True Crime Story Podcast. And if you look at her live streams, you will find this live stream. This was back in May of this year. So you'll be able to go and find the live stream and listen to it from start to finish. You'll be able to listen to a few bits that I left out and also just get a feel for the whole thing without my interruptions. So I'm going to finish there. Thanks for coming in. Please, if you haven't already done so, hit the like button on the way out. Also, if you are not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. If you're listening on replay, please do leave a comment below. I try to respond to people's comments. I do read everyone's comments. It's just sometimes hard to manage to actually respond to everyone's comments, but I do my best and I definitely read them. Even if you are here on the live stream, feel free to come back and add any comments if there are things that come to mind that you do want to share with people, because making comments on my videos and my live streams also helps me out immensely in terms of getting the content out there to more viewers. So on that note, thanks for coming in, and I'll catch you in the next one.